We have made several legislative changes to give better protection to women. Just touching on the changes in the last 3 years, in 2019, we amended the Penal Code to deal with sexual crimes which use technology. We repealed the marital immunity for rape. We introduced enhanced penalties for offences against victims in an intimate or close relationship with the offender. Usually women were the victims, even though the legislation is neutral about which sex. In the same year, we amended the Protection from Harassment Act to enhance protection of victims, enhance protection for victims of harassment. The victims are again usually women, or quite often young women. Last year, we increased the penalties for sexual offences, including outrage of modesty. That came into force just last month. We intend to take further steps, but for today's purposes, I'll deal specifically with violence in the family context. Violence at home, women again are more likely to be the victims. It's the proportion or the ratio is 3-1, roughly. Members would have read about some cases which were in the news. A woman was abused by her husband on several occasions, punched her, held scissors to her face, cut her hair while holding on to her head. An elderly mother was abused by her adult son for years, starved, not allowed to shower, physically assaulted. She did not report him to police. Guess the reason. Despite volunteers asking her to, because she said she did not want to affect her son, despite suffering all this abuse. MHA and MSF set up a task force on family violence in February of 2020. The TF came up with 16 recommendations. One common situation, for example, is a threat of violence. At home, in a flat, the husband is angry, he is threatening violence, the woman fears for her safety. If the police turn up, at that point, nothing much can be done, because if there is no actual violence and no imminent threat of violence, then it's very difficult to do anything. And a husband denies anyway that he's going to hit. And the women and the children stay in the same flat in fear, and then something bad can happen. Now, once these measures are able to be implemented, the task force recommendations, MHA and MSF will respond. They will make an assessment. If the situation is serious, if there has been violence, it may proceed as a criminal case. We try not to criminalize all of these situations, because that then does quite often irreparable harm to the family context. But where it's necessary, it's processed. If there is no actual violence, but there is a significant threat of violence, the wife may be offered the option of being moved to a safe space, depending on the facts, and it'll be her choice, even if there is no criminal offense. She has the option that she can take the children and leave immediately, go into the safe space, then consider her next steps, instead of facing the threat of violence. Could also include moving to a temporary shelter arrangement while working out longer-term interventions. Gives the parties the opportunity to cool down, provides an opportunity for reconciliation, and you really don't want every such situation to end up in the matrimonial courts. We will also empower specific persons, such as the Director General of Social Welfare, to apply for personal protection orders on behalf of those at risk in certain situations, like the mother who was clearly being abused but did not want to report her son. This will be very resource intensive, and therefore it will take time to implement. So members can see, however, what we hope to achieve.